चारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Hare Krishna. Today we'll be discussing from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 1, text 46. Sanjaya uvacha evam uktva Arjunah sankhye radhopastha upavishat visrujya sasharam chapam shokasam vignamanasaha. So in this way, Arjuna so far explained different reasons to Krishna why he should not fight. And now Sanjay is telling Dhritarashtra, O Dhritarashtra, evam, in this way, Arjuna, evam uktva, having spoken like this, Arjuna on the battlefield, Sankhye, Radha upastha upavishat. On the Radha, he sat down. Not just sat down, Visrujya, he gave up Sasharam Chapam, he gave up his bow and arrow, and he was overcome, he was afflicted with Shoka Sambigna Manasaha, his mind overwhelmed with grief. And so he sat down, which basically means he is not going to fight. So you see here, Arjuna sat down. A warrior sitting down itself is indicative that he is not fighting. Visrujya Sasharam Chapam. And he also put aside, apart from sitting and indicating that he is not going to fight, he put aside his bow and arrows, and he was afflicted with grief. Shoka Sambigna Manasaha. How can I fight? What can I do? So, one time Prabhupada also referred to this figurative meaning that when you give the reins of your chariot, your life journey is like you're sitting on a chariot and you're going towards the purpose of your life, is your spiritual life particularly, and you have given the reins of your spiritual life to Lord Sri Krishna. But sometimes when we become afflicted with grief, afflicted with illusion, lamentation, we also become sluggish in our spiritual life. We give up the resolve to fight, or we give up the resolve to progress in spiritual path. The Gandiva that Arjuna had, it symbolically also represents our determination to fight. All of us have, in our own way, our own Gandivas. We all have our own abilities. Krishna has given us God-given abilities. We may not realize, but all of us have abilities which is like Gandiva and which equip us to fight. At least the basic abilities Krishna has given us, these 5 senses with which we can chant the holy name, we can hear the holy name with our ears, we can read the literature with our eyes, we can see the deity with our eyes, and so on and so forth. So everybody has got this equipment, the weapons to fight. But just like Arjuna has given up his Gandiva, we can also become sluggish and give up our spiritual practices using our weapons, the senses. hearing, chanting, and so on and so forth. So you see, Arjuna was looking at all these warriors, his own people, the opponents, and he's coming up with the mind has come up with different crazy reasons how he should not fight. So the mind can make us lose the battle before the actual battle. So the mind plays a very important role. So if you are mentally very strong, even though you may be physically not very strong, you can actually overcome the obstacles. As they say, where there is a will, there is a way. I still remember in my college days, so we had a project. So 3 people were assigned the project. I was one of them. And there were 2 other people in my team. And this project was a little too huge for our ability. Within our reach, but given the abilities we had, it was a little out of reach. At least that's what I felt. It required us to learn a completely different language, and the timeline was quite aggressive, and so on and so forth. So I had done a preliminary analysis and I said, okay, this is not going to be possible. So we'll resort to some other achievable thing and let's not focus on that. And these 2 other people, they were quite hell bent on doing it. And they didn't budge, they didn't let me uh, affect their plans. So what I did, I was trying to work on other thing, and after a week or so, and I came up to the lab and they said, hey, look at this. And then they showed me something that was quite wondrous. They had actually achieved something which was considered, at least I considered, impossible, because they never let my analysis affect their positivity. They sat together, they actually learned, and they implemented it, and they achieved it in a record time. And I was quite flabbergasted at their resolve and their ability. So, and then I learned that never to give up. If something is given to us, it's possible that it is within our reach, but our mind may tell that it is not within our reach. The mind may make us resign way before the actual activity that it is not possible. So mental strength is very important, even spirituality, much more in spirituality. What to speak of ordinary material matters? Whose mind is strong can achieve wonders. A, a great tennis player, he was giving an interview, a world #1 tennis player, and he faced a lot of problems in the initial days of his career when people would look at his play and they would jeer at him. They would try to bully him because they don't want him to win. They want another favorite player of theirs to win. And so they would start to shout at him and slogans and all of that. And so this interviewer was asking, so how could you know, um, how could you deal with all of that negativity? So he said, so he would program his mind in such a way that he would basically mute out all their sounds, and he would hear instead that they are cheering for him instead of jeering for him. So, and then he would take that as the stepping stones for his success. Oh, so many people are cheering for me, and I'm the person who is going to win this. So instead of letting that talk or letting that slogans affect him negatively, he turned it around and made it appear positive for him. That means in the mind he won. Instead of losing in the mind, he made it a turn around and made it win in the mind. And actually that translated to his winning the games and eventually the championships, and he became the world #1 player. So the mind games are played by even opponents. Like you see the cricket games, for example, they conduct the pre-game interviews, and these coaches and these captains and players, they come and say, you know what, we are underdogs. This opponent is the one who is having pressure to deal with millions of their fans, and if they don't lose, how can they show their face? And we have this particular bowler who can bowl and who has always came up victorious, and we have got some nice plans against this batsman. So this other team might get quite affected. Oh my God, so many fans will get affected if we don't play, and oh my God, what to do? This trick they may play on me tomorrow, and in the mind can start playing so many tricks. And even before you actually play, you may resolve, oh my God, I'm done. I can lose this game. How can I go back? You start to think about possibilities that you would not have otherwise thought, and that will have a lot of effect in the actual game. So the mind has to be protected. The classic example, if the mind is not protected in our history, one of the biggest examples is that of Kaikeyi. Just before the coronation of Lord Ramachandra, so this Mantara, one of the maids of Kaikeyi, she comes and poisons the mind of Kaikeyi, saying that, how could you let Lord Ram become the king, which basically means end of her story, end of her supremacy. Now the king will never even come to see her, will never even consider her as a queen, and he would disregard Bharata and treat him utter disrespectfully, and he will even make him go out of the the city. And already he had devised a plan to do this when Bharata is not here, and you'll have no more significance. So all these kinds of negativity she has planted in the mind of Kaikeyi. Initially she resisted. Oh, how could you say that? Rama is as dear to me, in fact, if not more dear to me than my own son, which was the case. And she tried to protect herself, her sanity, but after a while she could not. So the enemy may have a sustained attack to our border, and if we are not strong, that sustained attack may cause cracks in our wall, and that crack is enough to let the enemy slowly get in. And once their foot is in the door, and the door can be ajar, and the enemy can walk in and create havoc. So this is the trick the opponent plays, the Maya plays, or the opponents play, to enter into our mind, to cause so much of confusion in our mind. It can come in different forms and shapes. The other example we find in scriptures is that of Bharat Maharaj. See, Bharat Maharaj, he was such a great king, he was such a great personality that he gave up his kingdom at a very young age. He was not very attached to enjoying materially, and he was quite austere in his practices. But then he became attached to a deer, because the deer was given birth by the mother who died when she heard the roar of a lion. And this baby cub, the deer cub, and this deer had nobody to take care. And Bharata felt compassionate. Oh, if I go ahead with my own duties, this deer will be killed, and I'll be responsible for its killing. I should care for it. Exactly like how Arjuna thought. If I go ahead with my duties, my killing business, these people will all be killed, and I'll be the one responsible for their death. Instead of progressing on his spiritual path, he let the illusion enter into his mind, into his existence, and he fell for it. Just like Bharat Maharaj fell, Kaikeyi fell. And such an exalted person like Bharat Maharaj, he died thinking of the deer instead of thinking of Krishna. And he became a deer in his next life. So, and fortunately, Krishna gave him remembrance because of his spiritual practices. And this deer, the Bharat Maharaj who became the deer, he could realize his mistake. And so he was always going around the hermitages of great sages, and he would live very austere, and he would sustain on dry leaves, and he would always associate with these great sages. And eventually, in the next life, again, he gets the body of Jadabharata, a very advanced spiritualist, but because he is very concerned about the association, he acted as if he was a deaf and dumb man. So sometimes people say, oh, Bharata, he was a great spiritualist. He had so much of spiritual practices, but because of a small lapse in concentration, how Krishna punished him to be a deer? It's not right. So people might question, oh, we may be very sincere in our practices. So a small mishap can be so disastrous. So how is it encouraging for a spiritual practitioner? So what we should understand is that Bharat Maharaj's case is a very special case. In fact, the Acharyas say that it is a special mercy on Bharat Maharaj. When Krishna showers special mercy, it is to make the devotee hanker for Krishna more, make the devotee eager for Krishna more, that Krishna does not ordinarily give to anybody. When somebody, say a poor man, he is looking for wealth and he is trying hard so much in his life, and ultimately he gets that wealth that he is looking so dearly, and he's got the wealth, he's become so happy that he's attained the wealth that he's been trying so hard, and suddenly he realizes the next day somebody stole the wealth. How mad he will become for the wealth, isn't it? He'll go mad after that wealth. So likewise it is said that when Krishna does that, the devotee becomes so eager and that intensity of love for Krishna increases. Whether he does it for Bharat Maharaj or when Krishna disappeared from their sight, from the sight of the gopis, their eagerness and hankering to meet Krishna increased manyfold. And Krishna does that only to his pure devotees who can pass the test, not to anybody and everybody. So we don't have to worry. In fact, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna assures that if you engage in Krishna consciousness, even swalpamapyasya dharmasya, you will get a human birth. Trayate mahato bhayat. Nehabhikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So if you perform even slight little bit of Krishna consciousness, your human birth is guaranteed. However, one should not take it for granted. Just like as I was explaining earlier in other classes, just because chanting of Hare Krishna can cleanse all our sinful reactions, one should not misutilize that chanting and continue go on performing sinful actions, thinking that the chanting will counteract. That will be an offense. Similarly, one should not take it for granted that, oh, I performed my Krishna consciousness, now my human birth is guaranteed, I can go on doing whatever I want. That's not the intent. That's not how one should approach this. One should be confident that, yes, by performing Krishna consciousness, Krishna assures me of human birth, so I can continue my Krishna consciousness. Not that I voluntarily give it up and start doing something nasty, thinking, oh, Krishna will save me. No, Krishna's intent is that occasional lapse in concentration, you don't have to worry. But Bharat Maharaj's case was a special case. He wanted to intensify the feelings of Bharat Maharaj, and also just to show as a warning, don't take it for granted. So you see in these examples, Bharat Maharaj example or Kaikeyi example, how the mind can be affected. Even Ajamila, we see in history and in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was quite a very well experienced brahmachari, and he became a grihastha practicing Krishna consciousness. But a mere sight of a couple, a Sudra man enjoying with a prostitute in the forest, and that was enough for bewildering him. And so he was quite affected, and he also got derailed from his path. So this happens when we look up to this world and we try to progress in our spiritual life. We encounter so many things. So Arjuna was progressing in his spiritual life, and he saw this world through his eyes, he was hearing through his ears, and we also get so many doubts. Oh, is this for real? Should I do Krishna consciousness? Does Krishna care for me? Why I am still undergoing tribulations? I served Krishna for so long, but still, why so many problems? Especially atheists, they try to plant so many doubts in our minds. So just like Arjuna got bewildered, we can also get bewildered, and that can eat away our determination. So at that time, what should be done? Just like these sports teams, they hire this mental conditioning coaches, not just physical coaches who can coach them in their game. They also hire these mental conditioning coaches to make sure that mentally they remain strong and healthy and don't entertain negative thoughts. So similarly, our mental conditioning coach is already there, our spiritual master. We should every day, these thoughts and these Maya's different ways of slackening our determination will enter our minds and cut our determination, our Gandiva determination to serve Krishna. But every day we should push them out of our existence with our coach's words, our spiritual master's words. So this Shabda is very important. Shabda Pramana, Shruti Pramana. We should hear, when we hear from the spiritual master or from the scriptures, the power of that sound can drive away all the illusions that are planted in our mind. That Shabda nourishes our determination. So you see how what has happened to Arjuna. He will turn to Krishna. The good thing is that he has Krishna right by him, and he will turn to Krishna instead of going away by himself. And Krishna will speak to him. And by the end of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna again picks up his bow and arrow and starts to fight. So similarly, when we continue to hear Krishna, we don't even have to go through the dip that Arjuna went through. So that's possible only by constant hearing and constant chanting. We should not become slackened. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, it is said. The prescription given is not that 1 week of Saptah, Bhagavat Saptah. That's a fashion in India where this Bhagavatam reciter will come for 1 week and he will speak from Bhagavatam only from the Rasalila portion, which is the most pleasing portion, and he will leave out everything else. And people, they come only to hear the narrative way of speaking instead of increasing their Krishna consciousness. So after that, things are as usual. They are engaged in Maya, and he also will go and engage in Maya, and so on and so forth. That is not the prescription. The prescription in Bhagavatam's own words is Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. There has to be regular hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, regular hearing from Bhagavad Gita, regular chanting of the holy names of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, regular reading from the books given by the spiritual master, regular association of the devotees, and importantly, regular honoring of prasadam offered to the deity. So, all of these things will protect our mind from the leakage to external world, the external Maya. And then we can become strong and not give up like how Arjuna is giving up. So I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions, you can unmute or you can pose it in the chat. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.